Welcome back, everyone, to Startup Security Weekly. Michael and I are here to talk about the startup news for this week. And admittedly, our show notes are all borked.
Refresh. I fixed them.
Did you? Okay.
I fixed them. Yeah, they're fixed. And as you refresh, So I told people I want to update them on the journey. And it was, I'm so glad we're doing this after Brian. Now, let me start by saying Brian was suggested to us by you. When we said, hey, who do you want to see on the show? One of you reached out and said, I think Brian would be a great guest. Yes, Brian was a great guest. And I think there's a lot of insight, a lot of real raw stuff there that was really cool. And what was neat was a lot of it was resonating right where I was at. So I wanted to ask, actually, if you're watching the show, I wanted to ask for your help. Here's what I got. I'm starting the next cohort of the Straight Talk Leadership Experience next week. And so what's cool is, like, if you look at launching something, you look at doing it online, I've done a couple things, and it's nice because it sounds like it matches up with what Brian was talking about. And Paul, I mean, obviously I'd love, this could be more of a discussion, but let me frame it real quick and then and ask people to help out in a couple different ways here. I put up a course landing page. I'll put it in the show notes. If you come to securitycatalyst.com, it's actually right on the home page. And that's also where the new 7 steps to Straight Talk is. So I got that updated. In fact, that's kind of what happened. I got to the end of last week, and I'm at that point, Paul, we talk about pitching and explaining stuff. Mm-hmm. So I've gone from people listening to me saying, oh, that's nice. And what I learned in a lot of those early conversations was if you kept talking, you'd hear what people were trying to solve. So like I would say, well, this is a way to bring people together, and you can learn what they're trying to do. And people are like, yeah, it's great. Here's what I need. I need to break down barriers. I don't know where to focus. I need clarity on my focus. I need this, I need that. And so I started listening to people and starting to show them how that works. So, Brian talks about his pitch deck changing. The way I explain stuff, the way I talk about it totally changed. So from cohort 1 to cohort 2, I just put up what we would call a landing page. I've got a new landing page up. I put some video on it. I would really love you to come and to check it out. And there's kind of 2 parts to it. A, if you want to join this next cohort, I'd love you to be part of it. I've only got room for about 30 people. And so here's the other thing too. And I like the way that Brian explained this. So here's one of the things that's happening. I'm trying to learn how to run a business that's not just me consulting anymore. I'm trying to figure out how do I, and start to build a team, but how do I do something that elevates and accelerates you as a leader and helps you communicate better as we do stuff. So you start learning about content marketing, you start learning about funnels and automation and all sorts of other stuff. And I got to tell you 2 things. At first, it's daunting. I know, Paul, you've offered to help with some of that because you've learned pieces to it. And I actually launched my very first Facebook ad today, which I'm sure I didn't do properly, and I will come to you begging for advice shortly.
Most people don't, in my estimation, and I certainly learned a lot, don't get their first Facebook ad right. And hopefully you only spent like $20 and
that's exactly that's what I did. I did $20. I cast the net wide. I went fast and simple and said, good, let me throw it in there, see what happens. We'll learn from it. We'll start getting better with it. But it's kind of neat. So here's the other piece to it then. When you start doing it, and look, if you've signed up for a mail list, you get this, right? It's the whole, well, it's closing on Monday. This is your last chance. But and let's say you jump in on it and you're like, dude, there's nothing here. Like there wasn't really scarcity. You're full of crap. And so I've been leery with a lot of that stuff because I don't want to come across as salesy. I want to be like, look, I'm here for you. So what's interesting is when I did it over the summer, it was all right, let me just go and I'm going to leap and we're going to figure it out. And a bunch of people came along for the ride. And as Brian pointed out, I have and I will continue to devote myself to those people. But if you go to the site, you'll see some of the things that they've written about their experience in the cohort, which has only helped me make it better. So then I started adding more stuff into it. So what I've found actually is I kind of went the other way. A lot of people, when they try to create these programs, they say, okay, now how do I get it to scale to 1,000 people? I'm going the other way. How do I keep it to 30 to 40 people? How do I give people a one-to-one coaching experience every single week? And one of the new questions I'm getting from people is, well, but Michael, I'm really busy. I don't even know if I have time for this. So I've started to break down and explain to people how all those different pieces work. So here's what you could do to help me. Go take a look at the page, check it out, and then be brutal with me. Did it resonate with you or not? And if it didn't, why? I've had some people come back to me and say, well, I'm not a leader yet. Yeah, you are. Trust me. If you're watching this show and paying attention, you're a leader. But let me know if there's a question that I didn't answer, if there's something you'd like to see better, if there's some piece to it. Because what I'm also doing is each of these cohorts, I'm considering the people who join me as an investor. So they're giving me value. They're helping me make this better. They're serving as the proof. They're creating the testimonials. They're helping me shape it so the price goes down. But as this continues, each cohort, I'm going to step the price up. It's not a game. It's not a gimmick. I know where the price needs to be. In fact, I'm going to put together some stuff this weekend. I'm going to be very transparent with people that the price is going to be somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 a cohort. But I'm going to prove to you that you're going to get 300% back of that investment. In fact, I'm going to include your time in that. And that's one of the things I'm going to put out this weekend and start showing people. And I want to be very transparent to make sure that I'm delivering that level of value consistently. So right now, I'm pricing it around $1,200. I'd like to understand, where do you sit with that? How do you feel with it? And then if you like what you see, but maybe you're really just not in a spot to do anything on it, introduce it to a friend. Help me get a little bit of lift. Help me get it to the people that can do something with it, that are going to benefit from it. And then we'll all keep learning. And while you're on my site, you'll see I put up, Paul, remember I promised I was going to do all those resources?
Yeah.
Since last show, I have worked 12 hours a day, every single day. I have a brand new resource section up. And in the resource section, remember we've talked before about the 5 lenses of value. So how do I know what your value is? Or how do I value my time? Or how do I measure this properly? Or how do I communicate effectively? That is all up. Absolutely free of charge, no gates, no nothing. That's up on the site. And I'll tell you what, a bunch of the clients I talked to this week thanked me for that. They said it made it easier for them to make the sale. So you know how you and I talk about putting more stuff out there and helping the community and making that type of a difference?
So important.
I am basically a week behind where I wanted to be in really trying to promote this cohort. Because I'm on one hand, in fact, I had a couple people sign up today. I've got 30, maybe a few less spots. Last week would have been the right time to do that. But I looked at it and I said, you know what? Let me go build out this 7 steps process. Let me go rebuild the homepage so it's more clean on what I do. Let me go show people how I work with them better. Let me go revamp this. And so I put a lot of time into it. And what I'm starting to see is that made a difference. And so from a startup perspective, I don't know yet how that's going to work, and that's kind of why I'm asking for your help if you're watching this and take a look at it. And again, if you want to join me, I'd love for you to be in that. But if not, I'd love for you to take a look at it and tell me the questions that you have, because I'm going to be building out the showcase and I'm going to be learning from Paul, and we're going to bring you more of this. And this is how I'm going to be able to give more value both back into the startups and into the security world. And we're going to show people how to do this type of stuff pretty consistently. And so I'm really excited about this. I'm completely terrified. We talk about that roller coaster that we're on.
That's good.
And it's so anyway, that's kind of the story I've got coming into it. So you ask about managing the week and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is a saint, and she's been pretty good at just taking the kids out. They go to the playground.
Yes.
And they go today, and it's been really helpful. So,
well,
anyway.
It could be helpful to get a celebrity investor, like maybe Snoop Dogg. Can you imagine the pitch for Snoop Dogg? I mean, Snoop Dogg's one of my idols. I don't know. He's cool. He's so cool. I mean, but it's kind of funny. Coincidentally enough, he's backed several cannabis startups, including
surprises me.
Right? Go figure. Including Mary Jane, Leafs by Snoop, Funk Sack, and Ease with a Z. I had to throw just something ridiculous in there. We haven't had a ridiculous story. I do it a lot on Paul's Security Weekly. We just had to throw it in there. Kind of on the flip side of that, this is
Iron Man is in there. Robert.
Yeah,
Downey Jr.
like when you ask, which celebrity would you choose as your parents, right? Like Robert Downey Jr. is up there for dad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's a few people on this list that I wouldn't want anything to do with, just to be fair.
Justin Bieber. I'm not sure how much of a investor.
There's a few.
50 Cent. It's 50 Cent. 50 Cent.
Tyra Banks, she's got a little bit of a temper, but that wouldn't be horrible.
Maybe not. It wouldn't be horrible having her in the boardroom either, for a lot of reasons. Yeah, so there's a lot of celebrities that do startups, which I thought was just interesting. It's kind of a fun list to go through and imagine some of these people investing in your startup.
Can you imagine what that pitch is like? You're like, oh my God, I'm pitching you.
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
But you gotta play it really cool, right? You're like, yo, what's up? Yeah, I'm here to pitch you. Hey, can you give me this autograph?
Real quick. Can we take a selfie real quick?
Yeah, don't ask for the autograph, man. Don't ask. All right, so we were talking about time. So it's interesting. It fits into our arc for the week. You've got some great stories in there. I picked 3.
Okay.
And it was interesting is they all kind of work together. So this is what set it off. I saw an article earlier this week, how I decreased my weekly office hours from 40 plus to less than 8. And look, I know everybody's in love with Tim Ferriss. I have nothing against Tim Ferriss, but what I've seen is he does the 4-hour work week, and everybody's like, oh, well, I should only work 4 hours a week. So I looked at this with a skeptical look of, you're working 40 hours plus like the rest of us, and now you're working less than 8 and you're a CEO? What? Here's the thing, though.
I don't know about that.
This is what I liked about it. And actually, she mentions that she has 4 kids. So I went, well, hold on.
There you go.
If I could work 8 hours a week and have 4 kids, that'd be kind of great. But here's a couple of things that she did I thought were important. First of which is she created space to forge the new path. And then a couple other things she said she does 5 things. I hired strategically. That's going to be one of the themes we work through. We started documenting our processes. You and I have talked about this a couple times. Created space, scheduled time for being away from the office. This is one of the things I've done. You and I have talked about this a lot. I don't take calls before a certain hour. Yep. I will work with people pretty much until I fall asleep at night if they need me to. But I know now that I am really creative. In fact, I don't know if I want to admit this too much, but I've been getting up at like 4:30 every morning. Dude, I'm full of energy. I have clarity of focus. Nobody's up in the house for 2-3 hours. I get so much stuff done.
I'm up at 5, and I've got a 5-month-old in my arms and my phone in the other. And if I can get him to go to sleep, I've had to learn how to be productive with one hand on my phone.
Hey, but still, right? I mean, that's kind of cool.
But I made strides, right? Flipboard is awesome. I figured if I can get through reading my stories and tagging them for all the shows in Flipboard, I wrote a Python script. I spent the time and wrote that and automated it. And that's what allows me to be prepared for my shows without having, when I get in the office now, I don't have to worry about that because I've done some of that. It's harder when you got to feed them and be on the phone at the same time. He doesn't really like the one-handed thing. I'm working with him on that. Like, Mom, work with me, Luke.
Duct tape out. Duct tape that.
Well, there's a startup that makes the thing that goes on the chest that holds the bottle. Yeah, I got to get one of those.
Yeah, we should interview them. That's the startup.
Yeah.
But what I love about that is what you're saying is you documented your processes. Now, how do you do about this other part? Scheduling time away from the office. Right now, I'm working out of the house, and I'm pretty sure that when we move, I'm going to get office space outside of the house. I've had office space outside of the house. I've had it in the house. I like the convenience of having it in the house, but then you feel like you're always working. And what I found was that when I had space, I could be like, all right, I'm done, I'm out. You have space. You have a beautiful studio. Does that work for you? Do you find that to be a big benefit?
I wouldn't have it any other way. I highly recommend it. I worked from home for a long time as well. And largely that was a time when my house was mostly empty during the day. But now not so much. So now it would just be chaos and having that separate, work time.
I'll have to be the Southern studio. That's what we'll do.
Absolutely.
We'll be the Southern studio, and I'll get the hell out. The other one that she put on that I liked was we improved communication. It's fascinating. Obviously, when you do straight talk, people, it's actually kind of funny. People associate that instantly with, oh, that's how they communicate better. And the funny part is I actually have to say, well, yeah, but it does a lot of other stuff. And what's interesting is a lot of people will say to me, well, I don't have that problem. I mean, we're good. I'm like, okay, well, what this really does is, and I go through like taking friction out of communication, giving some examples. We talk about clarity, priority. And then suddenly they go, you know what? I have that problem. I have that problem everywhere. Okay, let's think about this differently. And so I think somebody's saying, hey, how do we communicate?
Yeah.
And are we communicating well? And like she's talking about, look, I used email, I used texting, I used Google Chat. And then now they use Slack. We're using Slack. Frankly, I got 6 different communication things open right now.
My take on that, Michael, is not. I think improving communication is too broad. I think where I'm at now, and I'm probably going to make a big push from now to the end of the year, is being able to minimize having to communicate as much. And if you've done that other step of documenting your processes, I'm looking at technology that actually lets you communicate less and or more efficiently, right?
You know what I love about this?
Take out some of that communication. Calendly was awesome. We talked about that startup front. That's awesome. Ticketing system. Like now I'm kind of realizing how integral technology is, but now you're going to have to put investment in time up front in defining your policies and procedures, and then extend that when you adopt the technology, attaching, procedures to that and documenting your process. But once you do that, you don't when you do communicate, like it really counts, right?
You know what I love about that is that I woke up this morning and I went, oh, wait a minute. One of the big questions that's coming this week is, and it started as tongue in cheek, but I've had it now 4 or 5 times. Can you help me get out of these stupid meetings I got to be in? And every time I say, yeah, absolutely. And then I actually had somebody send me an email and say, wait, how? Like, well, okay, I'm in. How do I do that? And I'm thinking about how to build a way to start people do it. But just listening to you talk about it, you got to put some time up front in. So you know how you choose which ones to do, right? If you run through those 5 questions of straight talk. So what's the problem you're trying to solve? Mm-hmm. And unless it's just you, don't do that in a vacuum. Ask a couple other people, right? Make sure that you're really looking at the right problem. Are you ready? Do you have the right technology in place? Do you have the time? Do you have the money to pay for it? Is it a subscription? Is there a startup cost, right? There's a lot of stuff to go through it. And then what's the value? When you do that, what's that better tomorrow look like? And then I think that's a really good way. And then they keep looking for ways to improve. So anyway, I don't know if you're going to get down to 8 hours, although what she said is I now work less than 8 hours each week at the office. Yes. Okay. But hey, I don't think that's a bad idea. There's 2 other stories in here. I don't know if we'll have time for them, but what I wanted to point out was one of them basically said, "Hey, be nice to people," but what it's really saying underneath it is give them a purpose, make them feel like they're part of what you're doing, and then that's contrasted a little bit by saying, "Look, don't fit. You don't have to fit for culture," but that's actually not what he's saying. It's actually saying, "Don't be stupid about it, but fit for the right position and job." So if you understand what you're doing and you can give people that better tomorrow and show them where they fit and give them a reason to be passionate at work, then it's easier to find those right people, and then you're going to get where you need to be.
We'll put some of our stories in for next week too. The one I wanted to talk about was the location of your startup. Brian brought up some great points, and 2 of which Brian hit on were your team, right? So your location is going to define who you can get for your team. I mean, people can work remotely, but there's something to be said for your startup team working in the same location. He talked about where your investors are located or a proximity to your investors as being important. The article I found where startups are moving to Chattanooga, Tennessee, because it has city-owned gigabit network. So your internet connectivity certainly plays into it. And I never considered how important location was, and then considered those 3 criteria for your location. And look, I don't know how important it is in the grand scheme of things. However, it's something to think about if you're a startup or thinking of a startup.
But here's what I think about, right? Because I live in Myrtle Beach, and frankly, we're looking at moving closer to Charlotte. And part of that's too to be closer to air, not just for me outbound, but also for people to come inbound. When we used to live outside of New York, going to an airport and being able to fly anywhere direct was a really nice convenience. I realize now flying from this airport, it's connections everywhere, and you basically got to tack a day on either side. But what I think is interesting, though, is that there's a pretty good startup community in Charleston. And if you look at it, it's a lot around digital, it's a lot around arts and entertainment, bringing that stuff together. So I've started looking at how do you build that? How do you build those communities? How do you build those cultures into an organization or into an area? And what I think is interesting is, and I'm going to actually, this has got me interested enough, I'm going to go dig into it. I think Chattanooga, probably somebody said, hey, what can we do that would be attractive? Now, what I think is cool about it is they go, okay, we'll go build them cheap, fast internet. That's awesome. But you know what happens then, right? You get those first couple startups. Well, then it's easy to get a couple more. So they can still broadcast out, no pun intended, that they've got this fantastic gigabit Ethernet or connectivity rather. But what's going to happen on top of that? They're going to start bringing companies in. People are going to start there for that. But then if they can back that up, I mean, they've got a great picture there. And they can say, oh, and by the way, we got a good startup community. And we start working together and check out this little downtown area. And here's where the restaurants pop up. And they're connecting all of that stuff together. If they're doing that, that's going to be a model to keep paying attention to.
Absolutely.
I like it.
In the interest of time, we're going to cut this episode short. Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. Thanks to our special guest, Brian Baer from Red Canary. And, of course, always thanks to Michael Santarcangelo. Thanks, everyone, again, for listening and watching. We'll see you next week on Startup Security Weekly.